concept of the will to live is a fascinating topic that delves into the depths of human psychology and survival instincts. It refers to the intrinsic motivation that drives individuals to continue living even in the face of adversity, illness, or overwhelming circumstances. This powerful force can be influenced by a variety of factors, including emotional connections, personal beliefs, and the will to achieve one's goals. Research shows that people who have strong social ties, such as family and friends, often exhibit a greater will to live, as these relationships provide emotional support and a sense of belonging. Furthermore, individuals who maintain a positive outlook on life, or who have a strong sense of purpose, such as pursuing a passion or helping others, tend to show higher levels of resilience and a stronger will to survive challenging situations. Interestingly, the will to live is not just a psychological phenomenon. It is also linked to physiological responses in the body. For instance, studies have indicated that when people have a strong desire to live, their bodies may respond by activating the immune system more effectively, which can help in healing from illnesses. This connection between mind and body highlights the importance of mental health in overall well-being. In some cases, patients facing terminal illnesses have been known to defy medical expectations purely through their sheer will to live, demonstrating how powerful this drive can be. Additionally, cultural factors can shape an individual's will to live. In some cultures, there is a profound emphasis on family, community, and legacy, which can enhance one's motivation to overcome obstacles for the sake of loved ones. Conversely, in cultures where individualism prevails, the will to live may be more closely tied to personal achievements and self-fulfillment. The differences in these motivations can lead to varying experiences in how people cope with life-threatening conditions or emotional crises. Philosophically speaking, the will to live has been a subject of inquiry for many thinkers throughout history. Existentialists, for example, often explore the tension between the inherent struggles of life and the desire to find meaning in existence. This exploration can lead to deep reflections on mortality, purpose, and the human condition, prompting individuals to consider what truly matters to them and why they choose to continue forward despite life's challenges. Moreover, the will to live is often reflected in literature and art, as creators explore themes of survival, hope, and the human spirit's tenacity. These narratives resonate with audiences, as they reveal profound insights into the human experience, encouraging empathy. And the phrase "hell is other people" comes from the famous play No Exit, written by Jean-Paul Sartre, a prominent philosopher and playwright who was associated with existentialism. This brings us to the concept of interpersonal relationships, which can often be a source of discomfort, anxiety, or even suffering. The idea suggests that the way we perceive others and how we believe they perceive us can create a kind of psychological torment, especially when we feel judged or misunderstood. Interestingly, this notion resonates with many psychological theories, particularly those related to social anxiety and self-perception. When individuals are constantly aware of how they are viewed by others, it can lead to a feeling of confinement, as if they are being watched and critiqued at all times. This perspective can also be seen in the realm of social media, where people's lives are often on display for public consumption, leading to comparisons, envy, and self-doubt. The pressure to conform to societal standards can create a sense of isolation, even in a crowd. In a way, this digital landscape amplifies Sartre's idea, where the presence of others, even if virtual, can feel suffocating. Moreover, the phrase invites us to reflect on the nature of our interactions and how they might limit our sense of self. When we allow the opinions and judgments of others to shape our identity, we risk losing our authentic selves, leading to feelings of resentment or frustration. This can be particularly evident in toxic relationships, where one person's needs and desires overshadow the others, creating a dynamic that diminishes personal agency. The struggle to balance individuality with the need for connection is a common theme in human experience, highlighting the complexity of navigating relationships in a way that feels healthy and fulfilling. Sartre's exploration of hell as a product of human interaction also touches on the idea of freedom and responsibility. If we accept that our relationships can be a source of suffering, it becomes crucial to examine the ways in which we engage with others. Are we contributing positively to those around us, or are we perpetuating cycles of judgment and criticism? This self-reflection can be a pathway to change, allowing us to foster more meaningful connections that celebrate individuality rather than constrain it. Sadistic nihilism, a term that may sound complex, actually combines two intriguing concepts: sadism and nihilism. To understand sadistic nihilism, let's first break down these ideas. Sadism refers to deriving pleasure from inflicting pain or suffering on others, while nihilism is the philosophical belief that life lacks inherent meaning, purpose, or value. When these two concepts merge, sadistic nihilism emerges as a worldview where individuals may not only reject the notion of meaning in life, but also find joy or satisfaction in the suffering of others. This perspective can lead to a disturbing outlook on existence, as it often involves a lack of empathy and a desensitization towards the pain of others. Historically, sadistic nihilism can be traced to various literary and philosophical sources. Thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche, while not promoting sadistic nihilism directly, explored themes of power, suffering, and the absence of universal truths which have influenced later interpretations of nihilism. In literature, characters embodying sadistic nihilism often appear in works that delve into the darker aspects of human nature, such as the writings of Marquis de Sade. His works vividly illustrate the extremes of sadistic pleasure, intertwining the idea that if life has no ultimate meaning, then one could pursue their desires regardless of the consequences for others. In modern contexts, discussions on sadistic nihilism often surface in debates surrounding morality and ethics, especially when examining human behaviors in extreme situations. For instance, some psychologists and sociologists study how individuals or groups might adopt sadistic nihilistic views during conflicts or crises, potentially leading to acts of cruelty, violence, or exploitation. These discussions raise questions about human nature, the capacity for empathy, and the societal factors that can foster such destructive beliefs. Moreover, sadistic nihilism can be seen in various forms of media, including films, video games, and music, where themes of violence and the rejection of moral values are prevalent. This portrayal can desensitize audiences, leading to a normalization of violence, which some critics argue reflects a troubling trend in contemporary culture. These themes resonate with certain subcultures, sometimes celebrating a form of rebellion against societal norms, but they can also provoke serious discussions about the implications of embracing such ideologies. Interestingly, the rise of internet culture has provided a platform for discussions around sadistic nihilism, where anonymity can embolden individuals to express and explore darker thoughts without the fear of immediate social consequences. Online communities sometimes distill ideological suffering. A term that might sound complex at first refers to the kind of pain or suffering that seems to lack purpose or meaning. Imagine a situation where someone endures a significant hardship, such as a debilitating illness or the loss of a loved one. These experiences can evoke a deep sense of despair, especially when it feels like there's no reason behind the suffering. Philosophers and theologians have long debated why suffering exists, particularly when it seems pointless. One of the most compelling aspects of teleological suffering is how it challenges our understanding of purpose in life. People often seek meaning in their struggles, hoping to find some kind of lesson or growth that might come from their pain. However, teleological suffering raises questions about whether all suffering serves a greater good. For instance, if someone suffers from a chronic condition without any apparent benefit, It can lead to feelings of hopelessness and frustration. This concept also ties into existential thoughts, particularly those explored by philosophers like Albert Camus, who discuss the absurdity of life, suggesting that searching for meaning in a meaningless universe can be a source of great anguish. In literature and the arts, this teleological suffering is frequently depicted, emphasizing the emotional and psychological turmoil that can arise from seemingly senseless pain. Characters may grapple with their circumstances, highlighting the struggle to find meaning in a world that often feels indifferent to human suffering. This narrative can resonate deeply with readers, as it reflects real-life experiences where people face tragedies that seem entirely unjustified. Moreover, in the field of psychology, understanding this teleological suffering can be crucial for mental health. Therapists often encounter clients who are dealing with feelings of purposelessness stemming from their suffering. By addressing these feelings, individuals can begin to work through their pain and find ways to create meaning in their lives, even if that meaning is not tied to the suffering itself. Some may turn to spirituality or community, seeking connections that help them navigate their experiences. Interestingly, this teleological suffering can also prompt discussions about ethics and morality. In medical ethics, for example, debates around end-of-life care often revolve around the idea of alleviating suffering versus prolonging life. The question arises, should we intervene to ease suffering, even if it could mean hastening death? This ethical dilemma highlights the profound implications of understanding suffering as potentially purposeless, which can significantly influence healthcare decisions and policies. Furthermore, in the context of social justice, this teleological suffering, abjection, a term often associated with the work of French philosopher Julia Kristeva, refers to a complex emotional response characterized by a profound sense of disgust and rejection, particularly concerning things that threaten the boundaries of the self. This concept is deeply rooted in the idea of what is considered acceptable or normal, as well as what is deemed repulsive or unclean, often linking to the physical body, identity, and societal norms. In essence, abjection arises when we encounter something that challenges our sense of order or purity, leading us to push it away, to expel it from our consciousness and our lives, in a bid to maintain our sense of self and societal structure. For example, the imagery of decay, bodily fluids, or anything that evokes a sense of the grotesque can elicit feelings of abjection, as they remind us of our own mortality and the fragility of our existence. In literature and art, abjection serves as a powerful motif, prompting audiences to grapple with their own discomfort and fears. Many artists and writers, from the surrealists to contemporary creators, have explored the theme of abjection, inviting viewers and readers to confront their own boundaries and the darker aspects of human nature. This exploration can be unsettling, yet it often leads to profound insights about identity, the human condition, and societal taboos. In film, for instance, directors like David Cronenberg or Lars von Trier employ abject imagery to provoke strong reactions, leaving audiences questioning their own values and beliefs. In psychology, the concept of abjection can also be connected to the process of mourning and loss. When an individual experiences the death of a loved one or the end of a significant relationship, they may encounter feelings of abjection as they confront the reality of their grief. This emotional turmoil can manifest in various ways, such as a sense of isolation, a feeling of being unworthy, or a disconnect from oneself and society. Understanding abjection in this context can help individuals navigate their emotions and ultimately find a path toward healing and acceptance as they learn to integrate their loss into their identity without allowing it to define them completely. Moreover, abjection can be observed in various social contexts, particularly in relation to marginalized groups. Society often casts aside individuals who do not conform to established norms, labeling them as other, and thus provoking feelings of abjection among those who identify with the dominant culture. This dynamic can lead to discrimination, stigma, and systemic inequality, as those who, the phrase "God is dead" comes from the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who first used it in his work The Gay Science. Nietzsche wasn't saying that God literally died, but rather that the traditional concept of God was losing its influence in the modern world, as science, reason, and secular philosophies began to take precedence over religious beliefs. This idea sparked intense debates among thinkers and theologians, leading many to explore what it means to live in a world where the divine is no longer central to our understanding of existence. The ramifications of this statement have been profound, influencing literature, art, and existential philosophy. For instance, writers like Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre grappled with the implications of a world without God, focusing on human freedom, choice, and responsibility. The phrase has also become a cultural reference point, often discussed in the context of morality and ethics. If God is no longer the ultimate source of moral authority, what guides human behavior? Some argue that morality can be grounded in human well-being and social contracts, while others fear that without divine law, society could descend into chaos. This debate has led to the development of various ethical frameworks, including secular humanism, which emphasizes reason and empathy as foundations for ethics, rather than religious doctrine. Nietzsche's declaration has also been interpreted in various ways by different religious groups. Some view it as a challenge to reaffirm their faith in a world that seems increasingly skeptical of religion, while others see it as an opportunity to redefine spirituality, seeking meaning and purpose outside traditional religious structures. The rise of spirituality, which may not conform to organized religion, reflects this shift as people explore personal beliefs and practices that resonate with their individual experiences. Moreover, Nietzsche's idea has found resonance in contemporary discussions about science and religion, particularly in debates around evolution, cosmology, and the nature of consciousness. As scientific discoveries continue to expand our understanding of the universe, some argue that these insights challenge the need for a divine creator, while others find ways to reconcile their faith with scientific knowledge, suggesting that both can coexist. In popular culture, the phrase has permeated music, film, and literature, often symbolizing rebellion against authority, whether that authority is religious, societal, or governmental. Artists and musicians have used this phrase to express feelings of disillusionment, existential angst, and a search for identity in a rapidly changing world. This cultural legacy shows how Nietzsche's provocative statement has transcended philosophy, influencing the way being and nothingness is a fundamental philosophical text. Written by Jean-Paul Sartre, published in 1943. And it has had a significant impact on existentialist thought. In this work, Sartre delves into the nature of existence, exploring complex concepts such as being, nothingness, and human freedom. He argues that existence precedes essence, meaning that individuals first exist, encounter themselves, and only then define their essence through actions and choices, which challenges the traditional philosophical view that essence determines existence. Sartre distinguishes between being in itself and being for itself, where being in itself refers to the existence of objects which are fixed and unchanging, while being for itself refers to human consciousness, which is dynamic, self-aware, and capable of reflection. This leads to the idea that humans are condemned to be free, as they must take responsibility for their choices, which can be both liberating and burdensome. Sartre also discusses the concept of bad faith, a form of self-deception where individuals deny their freedom and responsibility, often by conforming to societal expectations or roles, thus avoiding the anxiety that comes with true freedom. Through this lens, the text critiques how people often live inauthentically, escaping the weight of their freedom by adopting false identities. Sartre's exploration of nothingness is particularly intriguing, as he posits that nothingness is not merely the absence of being, but rather an essential component of existence that allows for freedom and choice. The interplay between being and nothingness illustrates how the human condition is marked by a constant struggle to find meaning in a world that is often seen as absurd. Sartre's work has sparked extensive discussions and debates in philosophy, literature, and psychology, influencing many thinkers and movements that followed, and it remains a cornerstone of existentialist philosophy. The text challenges readers to confront their own existence, embrace their freedom, and acknowledge the weight of their choices, all while grappling with the underlying nothingness that pervades human life, making it a profound and thought-provoking read for those interested in the depths of human experience. The concept of samsara, originating from ancient Indian philosophies, particularly in Hinduism and Buddhism, refers to the continuous cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. This cycle is often described as an eternal torment because within it, souls are trapped in a repetitive journey, experiencing suffering, attachment, and desire, which ultimately leads to dissatisfaction. The term itself, derived from the Sanskrit word for to flow together, highlights the interconnectedness of all life experiences as they flow from one existence to another, creating a web of karmic consequences. In this cycle, the actions, or karma, of an individual in past lives significantly influence their current and future existences, with the belief that positive actions can lead to better circumstances in future lives, while negative actions can lead to suffering and challenges. The notion of eternal torment within samskara is deeply tied to the idea of suffering inherent in human existence. In Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths outline this suffering, asserting that life is filled with dukkha, or dissatisfaction, which arises from craving and clinging. This craving leads to a cycle of rebirth, where individuals are born into new lives, often facing the same struggles and desires that perpetuate their suffering. Notably, the cycle can be interrupted if one attains enlightenment or nirvana, a state of liberation from the cycle, where the individual transcends the limitations of their previous existences, freeing themselves from the burdens of samsara. In addition to its philosophical implications, samsara has also influenced various cultural practices and rituals. In Hinduism, the concept of moksha represents the ultimate goal, where the soul is liberated from the cycle of birth and death, often achieved through spiritual practices, devotion, and self-realization. Similarly, in Buddhism, the path to liberation is marked by the Eightfold Path, which outlines ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom, guiding practitioners toward enlightenment and an end to the cycle of rebirth. Interestingly, the imagery associated with samsara often includes the wheel of Dharma or the Bhava Chakra, which visually represents the cycle of existence. This wheel is typically depicted with various realms of existence, illustrating the different states of being, from heavenly realms to hellish ones, showcasing the diversity of experiences within the cycle. Each section of the wheel embodies different aspects of life, reminding individuals of the impermanence of all things and the importance of spiritual practice in breaking free from the grasp of samsara. Moreover, the ship of Theseus is a fascinating thought experiment that has intrigued philosophers, historians, and curious minds for centuries. The story goes that the ship, originally belonging to the mythical hero Theseus, was kept in the harbor of Delos as a memorial. Over time, as parts of the ship began to rot, they were replaced with new, sturdy pieces of wood. The question arises, when all the original parts of the ship have been replaced, is it still the ship of Theseus? This conundrum explores deep philosophical issues about identity, change, and continuity. Imagine, if you will, a scenario where someone collected all the old, discarded parts of the ship and rebuilt it. Which one is the true ship of Theseus? This leads to profound discussions about what it means for something to maintain its identity despite undergoing significant changes. Philosophers like Heraclitus have pondered over the nature of change, famously stating that one cannot step into the same river twice, emphasizing that everything is in a constant state of flux. This thought experiment has implications beyond just ships. It can be applied to living beings as well. For instance, consider your own body. Every few years, most of the cells in your body are replaced, so are you still the same person you were years ago? This question intersects with ideas of personal identity, consciousness, and memory, which have been explored by thinkers like John Locke, who suggested that personal identity is linked to continuity of consciousness rather than the physical body. The ship of Theseus also finds its way into modern discussions in areas like artificial intelligence and robotics. As machines become more sophisticated and undergo upgrades, at what point do they cease to be the original entity? If a robot has its components entirely replaced, does it still have the same identity, or has it transformed into something new? Moreover, this concept can be observed in the world of art. A restored painting, where original colors are replaced and damaged areas are fixed, raises similar questions. Is the restored painting still the original artwork, or has it become a new creation altogether? This intersection of identity and change is not only a philosophical inquiry, but also a practical one that affects how we view history, art, and even our own lives. The ship of Theseus continues to be a rich topic for debate, illustrating the complexities of existence and prompting us to reflect on the nature of identity itself, a theme that resonates throughout various disciplines, from philosophy to science and beyond. The trolley problem is a fascinating thought experiment in ethics and moral philosophy, often used to discuss the complexities of decision-making in life and death situations. Imagine a scenario where a trolley is heading down a track towards 5 people who are tied up and unable to move. You stand next to a lever, and if you pull it, the trolley will switch tracks, diverting it to a different path where there is one person tied up. On one hand, you can save 5 people, but this requires actively choosing to sacrifice one. On the other hand, if you do nothing, you allow the trolley to continue on its path, resulting in the death of 5 individuals. This dilemma raises numerous questions about morality, responsibility, and the value of human life. Philosophers such as Judith Jarvis Thompson and Peter Singer have explored variations of this problem, prompting discussions about utilitarianism, which suggests that the best action is the one that maximizes overall good, versus deontological ethics, which focuses on rules and duties. Some might argue that pulling the lever is the moral choice, as it minimizes the harm done, while others contend that taking an action that results in death, even for a good outcome, is inherently wrong. Interestingly, the trolley problem has practical implications beyond theoretical discussions. It has been used to analyze decisions in fields like medicine, autonomous vehicles, and artificial intelligence, for instance. How should a self-driving car respond if it must choose between hitting a pedestrian or swerving to avoid them, potentially harming its passengers? These questions force us to confront our values and the ethical frameworks that guide our decisions. Furthermore, variations of the trolley problem exist, including the fat man scenario, where instead of a lever, you have the option to push a large man off a bridge to stop the trolley. This variation emphasizes the distinction between action and inaction, as many people feel more uncomfortable with actively causing harm, even if the outcome is the same. This illustrates how human emotions and intuitions can complicate moral reasoning. Research in psychology has also shown that people's responses to the trolley problem can be influenced by factors such as cultural background, personal experiences, and social context. For example, studies have found that utilitarian responses may be more common in collectivist cultures where group welfare is prioritized over individual rights. This highlights the complexity of moral reasoning and how it can vary across different. The paradox of the ravens, also known as Hempel's paradox, presents an intriguing challenge to our understanding of confirmation theory and the philosophy of science. At first glance, it might seem straightforward, but it raises deep questions about evidence and how we confirm hypotheses. The paradox starts with a simple statement, "All ravens are black," which implies that observing a black raven supports this hypothesis. However, according to the principles of logic and confirmation, observing a non-big object, like a green apple, should also support the hypothesis, since a green apple is not a raven and thus does not contradict the idea that all ravens are black. This leads to the counterintuitive conclusion that the more green apples one observes, the more one seems to confirm the idea that all ravens are black. This can feel perplexing as it suggests that irrelevant evidence can provide support for a theory which challenges our intuitive understanding of how evidence works. The paradox also highlights the relationship between our theories and the world around us, emphasizing that our observations are often influenced by the hypotheses we hold. It raises questions about how we gather evidence, how we interpret that evidence, and how we decide what counts as confirmation for a theory. Philosophers have debated this paradox extensively, trying to reconcile the seemingly contradictory implications of our observations. Some argue that it reveals a flaw in our understanding of confirmation, while others suggest that it points to the complexities inherent in scientific reasoning. Moreover, this paradox invites us to consider the criteria we use to evaluate evidence. It challenges us to think critically about how we draw conclusions based on our observations and the weight we give to different types of evidence. In the realm of science, this discussion is particularly relevant as scientists often rely on patterns and observations to formulate and support theories. The paradox of the ravens encourages a closer examination of how we confirm scientific laws and theories, prompting scientists and philosophers alike to explore the foundational principles of their disciplines. This paradox serves as a reminder that the process of scientific inquiry is not always as straightforward as it may seem, and it invites us to engage with the complexities of evidence, theory, and observation in our quest for knowledge. The implications of the paradox of the ravens extend beyond philosophy. They touch upon the very nature of how we understand reality, how we gather knowledge, and how we interpret the world around us, ultimately pushing us to refine our approach to logic and evidence in our everyday reasoning. The experience machine is a fascinating thought experiment proposed by philosopher Robert Nozick as a way to explore the nature of happiness and reality. Imagine a machine that could provide you with any experience you desire, allowing you to live out your dreams, achieve your goals, and feel immense joy, all while being completely disconnected from the real world. Once you enter this machine, you would not be aware that you were inside, experiencing only the vivid sensations and emotions programmed into the machine. Nozick used this concept to question whether people would choose to plug into such a device, effectively trading their real lives for a simulated existence filled with perfect experiences. The crux of the thought experiment lies in understanding what people truly value. Is it the richness of real life, with all its struggles and challenges? Or is it merely the pursuit of pleasure and happiness? Many would argue that living authentically, with genuine relationships and real achievements, holds more worth than any manufactured experience, emphasizing the significance of real-world connections and the challenges that contribute to personal growth. Critics of the experience machine concept highlight that, while it might be tempting to opt for a life of pleasure, the absence of authentic experiences could lead to a sense of emptiness, as humans are inherently social beings who thrive on real interactions, challenges, and achievements. This thought experiment also delves into the philosophical questions of hedonism versus eudaimonia, where hedonism focuses primarily on pleasure, while eudaimonia emphasizes living a life of virtue and fulfillment. By examining the implications of the experience machine, individuals can reflect on their own values, desires, and the nature of happiness, leading to deeper insights about what it means to live a meaningful life. In essence, the experience machine challenges us to consider whether we would prioritize comfort and pleasure over authenticity and engagement with the world around us, prompting a rich dialogue about the essence of human experience and the pursuit of true fulfillment. The problem of evil is a philosophical and theological issue that has puzzled thinkers for centuries. It questions how a benevolent, omniscient, and omnipotent God can allow the existence of evil and suffering in the world. This dilemma is often framed as a contradiction. If God is all good, then he should want to eliminate evil. If he is all-powerful, then he should be able to eliminate evil. And if he is all-knowing, then he should know about the existence of evil. Yet evil persists in various forms, including natural disasters, disease, and moral wrongdoing. This has led to various responses throughout history, with some suggesting that evil is a necessary counterpart to free will, allowing humans to make genuine choices between good and evil. Others argue that evil is a result of humanity's fallibility, explaining that human beings, endowed with free will, often choose to do wrong, thereby causing harm to themselves and others. Additionally, some theistic perspectives propose that suffering and evil serve a greater purpose, perhaps contributing to personal growth, empathy, or a deeper purpose. Abtraker, Edwifeta. Conversely, philosophers like Epicurus and David Hume have highlighted the inconsistency of traditional theistic beliefs in light of the observable world, pointing out that if God is indeed all-powerful, he could prevent suffering, and if he is all-good, he would want to do so. This tension has led to the development of various theodicies, which attempt to reconcile the existence of God with the presence of evil, such as the idea that life on earth is a testing ground for souls, or that the existence of evil ultimately leads to greater good. The problem of evil has also influenced literature, art, and culture, prompting reflections on justice, morality, and the human condition. Many have turned to existentialism, which suggests that individuals must create their own meaning in a world filled with chaos and suffering, emphasizing personal responsibility in the face of adversity. In modern discussions, the problem of evil has also been examined through the lens of psychological and sociological perspectives, exploring how perceptions of evil and suffering can shape societal norms, values, and behaviors. This ongoing inquiry into the nature of evil continues to inspire debates in philosophy, theology, and ethics, as people seek to understand the complexities of human existence and the nature of divinity. The problem of evil remains a central topic not just in academic circles but also in everyday conversations, as individuals grapple with their own experiences of pain, and the quest, the omnipotence paradox, is a fascinating philosophical puzzle that has intrigued thinkers for centuries. It raises the question of whether an all-powerful being, often referred to as God, can create a rock so heavy that even they cannot lift it. This paradox creates a contradiction, because if the being can create such a rock, then they are not truly omnipotent, since there is something they cannot do, which is lift the rock. Conversely, if they cannot create the rock, then they are also not omnipotent, as there is something they cannot create. This paradox invites deep reflections on the nature of power and the limits of logic, leading to numerous interpretations and discussions among theologians, philosophers, and logicians alike. One approach to resolving the omnipotence paradox is to suggest that omnipotence does not include the ability to do logically contradictory things. For instance, if creating a rock that cannot be lifted by an omnipotent being is logically contradictory, then it falls outside the scope of omnipotence. This perspective implies that omnipotence is about having power over all that is logically possible, rather than having the ability to perform illogical tasks. In this sense, omnipotence could be understood as a quality that is compatible with the laws of logic, suggesting that even an all-powerful being cannot do the impossible. Another viewpoint suggests that the paradox points to the limitations of human language and understanding, as our concepts of power and possibility are inherently flawed. When we try to articulate what it means to be omnipotent, we may inadvertently impose human constraints on a divine being. This raises intriguing questions about the nature of divinity and the potential for beings beyond our comprehension, challenging our assumptions about what it means to have power. The omnipotence paradox has inspired various philosophical discussions, including debates about free will and determinism, as well as the nature of morality. If an omnipotent being can do anything, what does that imply about moral good and evil? And how can humans reconcile their own limited power with the concept of an all-powerful deity? Some argue that true omnipotence must include the ability to choose not to use power, leading to a rich exploration of autonomy and moral responsibility. Throughout history, notable philosophers such as St. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas have tackled the implications of the omnipotence paradox, contributing to a broader understanding of divine attributes. Aquinas, for example, argued that God's omnipotence is not diminished by The Last Man, is a fascinating piece of literature, written by Mary Shelley, who is best known for her groundbreaking novel Frankenstein. Published in 1826, this novel takes us into a post-apocalyptic world, where the story unfolds in the late 21st century. The plot centers around Lionel Verney, the last surviving human, as he navigates through a world ravaged by a mysterious plague that has wiped out humanity. Shelley's work delves into themes of isolation, despair, and the fragility of human existence, reflecting her concerns about the future of society and the environment, which resonate even today. In The Last Man, Shelley paints a vivid picture of a dying world, where nature reclaims cities once bustling with life. The characters are not just mere figures in a story, they embody the struggles of their time, grappling with love, loss, and the inevitability of death. Lionel, as the protagonist, is both a witness and a participant in the unfolding tragedy, and his reflections on the past are poignant, filled with longing for the connections that have been severed by the plague. This novel is often considered an early example of science fiction, as it explores speculative ideas about human survival and the impact of disease on civilization. Interestingly, The Last Man was not well received during its initial publication, with critics finding it bleak and overly pessimistic. However, over time it has gained recognition for its innovative approach and deep philosophical questions. One notable aspect of the novel is its exploration of the concept of individualism versus collectivism, as Lionel's journey prompts readers to consider what it means to be part of a society and what happens when that society collapses. The emotional weight of the story is enhanced by Shelley's lyrical prose, which captures the beauty and tragedy of life in a world without hope. Moreover, the novel raises ethical questions about human progress and the consequences of our actions. As Lionel encounters the remnants of civilization, he reflects on the achievements and failures of humanity, leaving readers to ponder the path we are on. The themes of loneliness and existential dread echo throughout the narrative, making it a timeless exploration of the human condition. Interestingly, Shelley's portrayal of a male-dominated society contrasts with her own life experiences as a female author in a patriarchal world, adding another layer of depth to her writing. In contemporary culture, The Last Man has inspired various adaptations and has influenced many artists and writers. Its themes. The Chinese Room is a thought experiment created by philosopher John Searle in 1980, which explores the nature of artificial intelligence and understanding. Imagine a person who does not speak Chinese, sitting inside a room with a large set of Chinese symbols, along with a rule book written in English that tells them how to manipulate these symbols. When Chinese characters are passed into the room, this person uses the rulebook to respond with appropriate Chinese characters. Without actually understanding the language, to an outside observer, it appears as if there is a person inside the room who understands Chinese, yet, in reality, the person inside has no comprehension of what the symbols mean. This scenario raises profound questions about whether machines can truly understand language, or if they are merely processing symbols based on predefined rules, without any genuine comprehension. Searle's aim was to challenge the notion that passing the Turing test, which measures a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior indistinguishable from that of a human, is sufficient for claiming true understanding. The Chinese room argument suggests that, even if a machine could convincingly simulate human conversation, it does not imply that the machine actually understands the conversation in the same way a human does. This thought experiment has sparked numerous debates in the fields of philosophy, cognitive science, and artificial intelligence, with many supporting and opposing views. Some argue that the Chinese room demonstrates a fundamental limitation of computational systems, indicating that they lack the subjective experience that underlies real understanding. Others contend that understanding could be seen as a functional process, where the ability to respond appropriately is enough to consider a system as having understanding, regardless of its internal processes. This controversy highlights the complexity of defining consciousness and understanding, especially as technology continues to advance. Moreover, the implications of the Chinese room extend beyond philosophical discussions. As artificial intelligence becomes more integrated into daily life, understanding the difference between simulating human-like responses and actual comprehension becomes increasingly important. For example, chatbots and virtual assistants can provide information and assistance, yet they operate based on algorithms and data analysis, lacking genuine understanding or emotions. This distinction raises ethical questions about the use of AI in sensitive areas, such as mental health support or education, where human understanding and empathy are crucial. The Chinese room also invites reflection on the nature of language itself. Language is not just a system of symbols, it involves context, culture, and shared human experiences. The ability to engage in meaningful dialogue requires more than just the concept of the brain in a vat is a fascinating philosophical thought experiment, which explores the nature of reality, knowledge, and consciousness. Imagine, for a moment, that a brain, removed from its body, is kept alive in a vat of nutrients, with its neurons connected to a supercomputer. This computer feeds the brain's simulated experiences, creating a rich tapestry of sensory input, just as the real world does. This scenario raises profound questions, such as, how can we know that our experiences are genuine and not mere illusions? Philosophers like Hilary Putnam have used this scenario to challenge our understanding of knowledge and reality, suggesting that if we were indeed brains in vats, we would have no way of knowing it because all our perceptions would be artificially generated. This leads to the idea of skepticism, which suggests that we should doubt the certainty of our knowledge. The brain in a vat thought experiment is often linked to more contemporary discussions about virtual reality and artificial intelligence, as technology continues to blur the lines between what is real and what is simulated. It prompts us to think deeply about free will and autonomy, since if our experiences are manipulated, what does that say about our ability to make genuine choices? The idea has been popularized in various forms of media, from philosophical texts to movies like The Matrix, where characters grapple with the distinction between reality and illusion. This thought experiment is not just an abstract idea, it is a relevant discussion in the age of digital technology, where simulated experiences can feel increasingly real, and where the boundaries of consciousness and reality are often tested. It's a profound inquiry into the essence of human experience, the reliability of our senses, and the very nature of existence itself. As we delve into these philosophical waters, we find ourselves questioning the reliability of our perceptions and considering the implications of a reality that could be entirely fabricated, leading to a deeper understanding of what it means to be truly aware. The liar paradox is a fascinating topic that delves into the complexities of truth and language. At its core, the paradox arises from a simple statement. This statement is false. If the statement is true, then it must be false, as it claims, but if it is false, then it is true, creating a loop of contradiction that challenges our understanding of truth. This paradox has intrigued philosophers, logicians, and linguists for centuries, prompting discussions about the nature of truth, self-referentiation, and the limitations of language. It raises essential questions about how we define truth and the implications of self-referential statements. The implications of the liar paradox extend beyond philosophy. It has influenced fields such as computer science, where understanding truth and falsehood is crucial for developing algorithms and programming languages. For example, in programming, a self-referential loop can lead to errors or infinite loops, mirroring the paradox's inherent contradictions. The liar paradox also finds its place in discussions about the foundations of mathematics, where similar self-referential statements can lead to inconsistencies in formal systems. The paradox has inspired various solutions and interpretations, ranging from the idea that truth is not binary to the exploration of different logical systems that can accommodate such statements without contradiction. Some philosophers propose that the paradox reveals limitations in our language and urges us to rethink how we communicate complex ideas. Others suggest that understanding the liar paradox can lead to a deeper appreciation of the nuances of meaning and the role of context in determining truth. This interplay between language, meaning, and logic not only enriches our understanding of philosophy, but also invites us to consider how we approach communication and understanding in everyday life. The liar paradox remains a captivating topic, sparking curiosity and debate, as it challenges our perceptions of truth, prompting us to explore the intricate relationship between language and reality. The Sorites paradox, also known as the paradox of the heap, is a fascinating philosophical puzzle that challenges our understanding of vagueness and how we classify objects. It originates from the Greek word soros, meaning heap. The paradox arises when we consider a heap of sand. If you have a heap of sand and you remove a single grain, you might still have a heap, but if you continue this process, removing grains one by one, at some point you will be left with a single grain. The question then becomes, at what exact point does the heap cease to be a heap? Is it after removing 1 grain, 2 grains, or perhaps more? This leads to the conclusion that our concepts of heap and not a heap are not as clear-cut as we might think. Philosophers have debated this paradox for centuries, exploring the implications it has on language, logic, and our understanding of categories. Some argue that the vagueness in our language causes this confusion, while others believe it reveals fundamental issues in how we conceptualize the world. For example, if we say that removing 1 grain from a heap still leaves us with a heap, it seems reasonable, but if we continue removing grains until we are left with none, we are faced with the absurdity of claiming that an empty space is still a heap. The Sorites paradox not only raises questions about heaps of sand, but it also extends to other areas of life, like the notion of baldness. If you lose 1 hair, you are still not considered bald. If you lose another, the same applies. However, if you keep losing hairs, at what point do you officially become bald? This question illustrates how our everyday terms can be ambiguous and highlights the challenge of defining concepts that are inherently vague. This paradox has significant implications for fields like linguistics, cognitive science, and law, where clear definitions are crucial. The So Right's paradox encourages us to think critically about how we categorize and define things in our lives, prompting us to ask whether we need more precise language or perhaps a different approach to deal with vague terms. Various solutions have been proposed to resolve the paradox, such as adopting fuzzy logic, which allows for degrees of truth rather than a strict true/false dichotomy. Others suggest that we simply accept the vagueness as a natural part of language and thought, while some propose that we should reformulate our understanding of how we use language. Moral luck is a fascinating and complex philosophical concept that raises questions about how much control we truly have over our actions and their moral implications. At its core, moral luck suggests that a person's moral standing can be influenced by factors beyond their control, making it a deeply intriguing area of study in ethics. Imagine two drivers, both of whom are texting while driving, but only one of them, unfortunately, ends up causing an accident, while the other, by sheer luck, manages to avoid any mishaps. In this scenario, the driver who causes the accident may be judged more harshly, despite both drivers engaging in the same irresponsible behavior. This discrepancy highlights how outcomes, rather than intentions, can influence moral judgment, and it challenges our intuitions about accountability. There are several types of moral luck that philosophers, such as Thomas Nagel and Bernard Williams, have identified. One type is resultant luck, which refers to how outcomes affect our moral assessment of actions. Another type is circumstantial luck, which deals with the situations we find ourselves in and how those situations can shape our choices and the moral weight of those choices. For example, consider a soldier who is faced with a difficult decision in a combat situation. Their moral standing may heavily depend on the circumstances they are put in, which they did not choose. Then there's constitutive luck, which pertains to our character and dispositions, shaped by factors like upbringing or social environment, often beyond our control. This aspect raises questions about whether we can truly take credit for our virtuous actions or blame ourselves for failings if our character was largely influenced by external factors. The implications of moral luck extend into various fields, including law, psychology, and everyday ethics. In the legal context, for example, the concept can affect how justice is administered. A person who commits the same crime but with different outcomes may face different consequences, leading to discussions about fairness and equality in legal systems. Similarly, in psychology, moral luck can impact how people perceive their own actions and those of others, often leading to cognitive biases that skew moral evaluation. The idea also invites discussions about personal responsibility. If our actions are significantly influenced by luck, to what extent can we be held accountable for them? This question leads to deeper reflections on human behavior, free will, and the nature of morality itself. Moral luck challenges the black and white perceptions of right and wrong, encouraging a more nuanced understanding of ethics. It compels us to reconsider our judgments. The ethics of killing is a deeply complex and thought-provoking subject, touching on philosophical, moral, and legal dimensions that have been debated for centuries. At its core, this topic challenges us to consider the value of life, what justifies ending it, and how different contexts can alter our moral reasoning. For instance, the debate often centers around issues like self-defense, war, capital punishment, and euthanasia, each carrying its own set of ethical considerations. When it comes to self-defense, many argue that taking a life to protect oneself or others can be justified, especially if there is an imminent threat. This raises questions about the intent behind the act as well as the proportionality of the response, prompting discussions about whether one's life holds more value than another's in such dire situations. In the context of war, the ethics of killing becomes even more nuanced. Just war theory, for example, outlines conditions under which war can be morally justified, emphasizing concepts like proportionality and discrimination between combatants and non-combatants. The moral implications of killing enemy soldiers versus innocent civilians create a challenging moral landscape where the line between right and wrong can become blurred. Furthermore, the psychological impact on soldiers who engage in combat can lead to lasting trauma, raising ethical questions about the responsibilities of nations in sending individuals to fight in wars. Capital punishment, or the death penalty, presents another significant aspect of this discussion. Advocates argue that it serves as a deterrent against serious crimes and delivers justice for heinous acts, while opponents contend that it is an irreversible punishment that fails to address the root causes of crime and disproportionately affects marginalized communities. The ethical dilemma here often hinges on the value of human life and whether the state should have the authority to take it away, especially considering the possibility of wrongful convictions. Euthanasia and assisted suicide introduce yet another layer to the ethics of killing. As societies grapple with issues surrounding terminal illness and suffering, the debate centers on the right to die with dignity versus the sanctity of life. Proponents argue that individuals should have autonomy over their own bodies and choices, while opponents raise concerns about potential abuses and the slippery slope of devaluing life. This conversation often intersects with discussions about mental health, disability rights, and the role of medical professionals in end-of-life care. Lastly, the ethics of killing in terms of animal rights and environmental concerns has gained traction in recent years. The treatment of animals in factory farming, hunting, and scientific research raises questions about The repugnant conclusion is a thought-provoking idea in the realm of ethics and philosophy, particularly in discussions about utilitarianism, which is the belief that the best action is the one that maximizes overall happiness. The repugnant conclusion suggests that under certain utilitarian frameworks, a very large population of people living lives that are barely worth living could be considered more desirable than a smaller population living lives that are extremely fulfilling and rich in happiness. This notion was first introduced by philosopher Derek Parfit in his work Reasons and Persons, and it raises challenging questions about how we measure well-being and the value of life itself. To understand the repugnant conclusion better, consider a scenario where you have a small group of individuals who experience profound happiness, let's say 100 people who live lives filled with joy, love, and fulfillment. Now, contrast that with a much larger group, perhaps 1 million individuals whose lives are filled with suffering, but whose existence is still considered to have some minimal level of happiness. In a strict utilitarian sense, one might argue that the overall happiness of the larger group outweighs the happiness of the smaller group, leading to the unsettling conclusion that in certain calculations the larger group's existence is preferable, even if their lives are not ideal. This conclusion can feel counterintuitive, and it challenges our intuitions about the value of life and happiness. Many have debated this conclusion, arguing that it seems morally wrong to suggest that a life with only a minimal level of happiness could be more valuable than a life filled with genuine joy and satisfaction. Critics of the repugnant conclusion have proposed various alternatives to utilitarianism, suggesting that we should focus more on the quality of lives rather than merely the quantity of happiness. Some philosophers, for instance, advocate for a prioritarian approach, which emphasizes the importance of improving the lives of the worst-off individuals, rather than just maximizing total happiness. Others have delved into the implications of population ethics, exploring how the addition of more individuals to a population affects overall happiness and well-being. This area of study raises questions about whether we should prioritize existing individuals' happiness or consider the potential happiness of future individuals who have yet to exist. The repugnant conclusion, therefore, not only invites us to rethink our understanding of happiness and well-being, but also challenges us to consider the broader implications of our ethical beliefs Additionally, discussions around the repugnant conclusion often intersect with concerns about resource distribution. The veil of ignorance is a fascinating concept in political philosophy, introduced by John Rawls in his influential work, A Theory of Justice, published in 1971. This thought experiment encourages individuals to think about justice and fairness in a unique way. Imagine, if you will, that you are behind a veil, where you don't know anything about your personal characteristics, such as your social status, gender, race, or individual talents. This veil forces you to consider what kind of society you would want to create if you were to emerge from this ignorance and face the realities of life in a world where your identity was entirely unknown to you. The idea is that, without knowledge of your own situation, you would strive to establish principles that ensure fairness for everyone, since you might end up in any position within society, from the wealthiest to the most disadvantaged. This concept urges us to think about the structures that govern our communities, prompting us to ask ourselves what rules and laws would be just if we were unaware of our own circumstances. In doing so, it challenges us to reflect on the inequalities present in our world and encourages a sense of empathy as we recognize that anyone could be in a vulnerable position. Rawls proposed two main principles of justice that would likely emerge from this thought process. The first principle guarantees equal basic rights and liberties for all individuals, while the second principle, known as the difference principle, allows for social and economic inequalities only if they benefit the least advantaged members of society. This philosophical approach has been influential in debates about social justice, public policy, and ethics, as it provides a compelling framework for evaluating the fairness of various social arrangements. The veil of ignorance encourages us to think beyond our immediate self-interests and consider the broader implications of our decisions on others, which is particularly relevant in discussions about healthcare, education, and wealth distribution. By adopting this perspective, individuals can cultivate a more equitable society, where the needs of the most vulnerable are prioritized, and everyone has an opportunity to thrive. Moreover, the application of the veil of ignorance extends beyond academic discussions. It can serve as a practical tool for policymakers and leaders who are tasked with making decisions that affect diverse populations. By envisioning policies through the lens of the veil, they can strive to create systems that promote justice and equality, rather than perpetuating existing inequality. This philosophical concept invites us to the transhumanist dilemma. A fascinating intersection of technology and philosophy raises many questions about the future of humanity as it explores the potential enhancement of human beings through advanced technologies such as genetic engineering, cybernetics, and artificial intelligence. At the core of this dilemma is the idea that if we can improve ourselves, should we? Proponents of transhumanism argue that enhancing human capabilities can lead to a better quality of life, longer lifespans, and even the eradication of diseases, which sounds appealing, but then there are ethical and moral concerns that come into play. One significant concern is the issue of inequality, as access to enhancement technologies might only be available to the wealthy, which could create a new class divide, where the enhanced could dominate the unenhanced, leading to societal tensions and possibly even conflict. Additionally, there are questions about the loss of what it means to be human, as some fear that as we modify our bodies and minds, we might lose essential qualities that define our humanity, such as empathy, creativity, and connection to nature. Moreover, there is a worry about the unforeseen consequences of these enhancements. For instance, if we were to enhance our cognitive abilities, would we also risk losing our emotional intelligence? Would the pursuit of perfection lead to new forms of mental health issues, as people might struggle with the pressures of living up to enhanced standards? And what about the environmental impact of producing and implementing these technologies? As we consider these questions, it's essential to look at the perspectives of various thinkers in the field, Some, like philosopher Nick Bostrom, argue that we should tread carefully, advocating for a balanced approach that considers both the benefits and the risks associated with transhumanist technologies. Others, like futurist Ray Kurzweil, are more optimistic, believing that technological progress will ultimately lead to breakthroughs that improve our lives in unimaginable ways. The transhumanist dilemma also touches on the philosophical debate about identity, as enhancements may lead to changes in how we perceive ourselves and others. If someone enhances their intelligence or physical abilities, are they still the same person? This leads to existential questions about the nature of self and continuity of consciousness. Moreover, the debate extends into the realm of artificial intelligence, as we develop machines that can think and learn like humans, or even surpass human intelligence. If we create super-intelligent AIs, how will we coexist with them? Will they enhance our lives or pose? The debate between free will and determinism is one of the most intriguing discussions in philosophy, psychology, and even neuroscience. Free will suggests that individuals have the power to make choices, to act according to their own volition, and to influence their future through those choices. On the other hand, determinism posits that every event, including human actions, is determined by preceding events in accordance with the natural laws, suggesting that our choices are merely the result of a complex chain of cause and effect, leaving little to no room for genuine freedom of choice. This raises compelling questions about responsibility, morality, and the nature of human existence. Many people find themselves fascinated by the implications of this debate. If free will exists, it means we have the power to shape our destinies, to go against our instincts, and to choose differently than what might be expected based on our past experiences, genetic predispositions, or environmental influences. This perspective often provides a strong foundation for concepts like moral responsibility, where individuals are held accountable for their actions, as they are believed to have the capacity to choose between right and wrong. Conversely, if determinism is true, it challenges our traditional views of accountability, suggesting that our thoughts, feelings, and actions are simply the result of factors beyond our control, such as biology, upbringing, and social conditioning. This brings about a more fatalistic view of life, where individuals might feel less empowered to change their circumstances, as they may believe that their actions are predetermined by prior causes, leading to implications in various fields, including law, ethics, and personal relationships. Neuroscience has also contributed to this debate, with studies indicating that our brains make decisions before we are consciously aware of them. This has led some to argue that free will is an illusion, as our choices might be influenced by unconscious processes, brain chemistry, and external stimuli, rather than being a result of conscious deliberation. However, other scholars posit that even if our decisions are influenced by various factors, this does not negate the experience of making choices and the subjective feeling of freedom that accompanies decision-making. Cultural perspectives also play a role in shaping beliefs about free will and determinism. In many cultures, the belief in free will is deeply ingrained, often linked to spiritual or religious concepts of the soul and personal growth, while others may lean towards a more deterministic view, emphasizing collective responsibility and the influence of societal structures on individual behavior. As this discussion continues to evolve, Pascal's wager, a philosophical argument presented by the French mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal in the 17th century, is a fascinating exploration of belief, rationality, and the existence of God. The wager suggests that humans bet with their lives on the existence or non-existence of God, and the stakes are incredibly high. According to Pascal, if you believe in God and He exists, you gain eternal happiness in heaven, which is an infinite reward. On the other hand, if you believe in God and He does not exist, you lose very little, perhaps some earthly pleasures. Conversely, if you do not believe in God and He does exist, the consequences are dire, as you risk eternal suffering. Therefore, Pascal argues that it is more rational to believe in God, as the potential gain far outweighs the potential loss. This wager does not attempt to prove God's existence, but rather suggests that belief is a safer bet, especially considering the infinite nature of the potential rewards and punishments. Pascal also acknowledges that genuine belief can be difficult to achieve purely through rational thought, which leads him to suggest that individuals can take steps towards belief, for instance by engaging in religious practices such as prayer or attending church. One may cultivate a belief in God over time. This idea introduces an interesting psychological aspect to the wager, as it implies that belief can be influenced by actions rather than just intellectual conviction. Critics of Pascal's wager often argue that it oversimplifies the complexities of faith and belief, reducing them to a mere gamble. They point out that the wager assumes a binary choice between the Christian God and atheism, ignoring other religious beliefs and deities. Additionally, some philosophers argue that genuine belief cannot be forced through a pragmatic approach, as faith is often seen as a deeply personal and profound conviction. Nevertheless, Pascal's wager remains a significant contribution to discussions about faith, reason, and existential choice. It invites individuals to consider the implications of their beliefs, nudging them towards a more profound inquiry into the nature of existence and the divine. In a world filled with uncertainty, Pascal's argument encourages a thoughtful examination of how one chooses to engage with the big questions of life and the potential consequences of those choices, which can be both enlightening and challenging. The problem of other minds is a fascinating philosophical issue that deals with the question of how we can know that other people have minds, thoughts, and feelings similar to our own. This problem arises from the fact that, while we can easily observe other people's behaviors, expressions, and reactions, we cannot directly access their inner thoughts and experiences. Imagine being in a crowded room where everyone is laughing or crying, yet you can't actually know what each person feels or thinks at that moment. This creates a sort of barrier, a gap in understanding that philosophers have wrestled with for centuries. One of the key figures in this discussion is the philosopher Descartes, who famously said, "I think, therefore I am." This statement emphasizes that the act of thinking is proof of one's existence and consciousness. However, when it comes to others, we can't rely on their declarations of thought, since they could simply be mistaken or even deceptive. This leads to questions about how we can attribute mental states to others, especially when we only have our own experiences as a point of reference. In the realm of philosophy, a common approach to address this problem is through analogy. This means we often draw parallels between our own experiences and those of others. For instance, if I feel pain when I stub my toe, I might assume that if you stub your toe, you would feel pain too. This is a reasonable assumption, but it still remains an assumption, not a certainty. Philosophers call this reliance on analogy the argument from analogy. However, critics argue that this approach has its limitations, as it might not account for the vast differences in individual experiences, cultural backgrounds, or even neurological condition. Another perspective on the problem of other minds comes from the field of science, particularly neuroscience and psychology. Researchers study brain activity and behavior to understand how thoughts and feelings manifest in the brain. Techniques such as fMRI scans allow scientists to observe which areas of the brain activate during certain experiences, providing insights into how others might be feeling or thinking. Yet, even with this advanced technology, the subjective experience remains elusive, and brain activity does not fully capture the richness of personal thoughts or emotions. Furthermore, social interaction plays a crucial role in how we navigate the problem of other minds. Humans are inherently social creatures, and we often rely on social cues, such as facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice, to interpret the feelings of others. For example, if someone is smiling, we The infinite monkey theorem is a fascinating concept in probability and mathematics, often described with a whimsical twist. It suggests that if you have an infinite number of monkeys typing randomly on typewriters for an infinite amount of time, one of those monkeys would eventually type out the complete works of William Shakespeare, or any other literary masterpiece for that matter. This theorem, while seemingly absurd at first glance, illustrates some profound ideas about randomness, infinity, and the nature of probability. The origins of this theorem can be traced back to the late 19th century, particularly to the thoughts of mathematician Emile Borel, who explored the implications of infinite scenarios. To understand this concept better, think about the sheer volume of possibilities that exist when you have random typing. Each keystroke made by a monkey is an independent event, meaning that every time a monkey hits a key, it does not influence the next key it will hit. If each monkey types away, producing a random string of letters, the odds of creating a coherent piece of text, like a sonnet or a novel, become astronomically small. However, over an infinite timeline, every possible combination of letters and spaces will eventually occur. This means that not only could a monkey randomly type out Shakespeare's works, but it could also produce every book ever written, and even books that have yet to be imagined. Now, let's consider the implications of this theorem in terms of real-world applications and philosophical questions. It raises important discussions about the nature of creativity, authorship, and the randomness of existence. In a universe governed by chance, the theorem suggests that all possibilities are attainable, given enough time. This line of thinking invites us to reflect on the idea that much of what we create may not be as unique as we believe, as there exist infinite variations and combinations of thought. Moreover, this theorem has inspired various artistic and cultural references, from literature to movies, where the image of monkeys typing away has become a symbol of chaos, creativity, and the unpredictable nature of art. The idea also connects with concepts in computer science and information theory, where randomness plays a critical role in algorithms and data generation. In addition, the infinite monkey theorem also encourages discussions on the limits of human understanding and the nature of infinity itself. Infinity is a complex and often mind-boggling concept. It transcends the boundaries of our everyday experiences. This theorem allows us to ponder the vastness of possibilities that exist beyond our comprehension. Zeno's paradoxes, originating from ancient Greece, present fascinating philosophical challenges that have intrigued thinkers for centuries, particularly in the realms of mathematics and motion. One of the most famous of these paradoxes is the Achilles and the tortoise, where Achilles races a tortoise which has a head start. Zeno argues that Achilles will never be able to overtake the tortoise because whenever Achilles reaches the point where the tortoise was, the tortoise has moved ahead a little further. This seemingly simple scenario raises deep questions about the nature of space, time, and movement, challenging our intuitive understanding of how we perceive distance and speed. Another well-known paradox is the dichotomy paradox, which suggests that before reaching a destination, one must first cover half the distance, then half of the remaining distance, and so on, leading to an infinite number of steps. This implies that motion is impossible, as one would never actually reach the destination, since there are always more halves to cover. This paradox forces us to reconsider how we define distance and continuity, prompting discussions on the infinite divisibility of space and time. Zeno also introduced the arrow paradox, where he argues that for an arrow in flight at any single instant of time, the arrow is at rest in a specific position. If time is made up of these instants, Zeno questions how the arrow can possibly be in motion if at every moment it is stationary. This paradox not only challenges our understanding of motion, but also touches on the philosophical implications of time and existence, leading to discussions about the nature of reality itself. The philosophical implications of Zeno's paradoxes have influenced various fields, from mathematics, notably in calculus, with concepts of limits and convergence, to physics, as we explore the fundamental nature of space and time. The development of calculus, especially through the work of mathematicians like Newton and Leibniz, provided tools to address some of these paradoxes, allowing for a more rigorous understanding of motion and change, thus showing how ancient philosophical inquiries can still resonate within modern scientific discourse. Moreover, Zeno's paradoxes highlight the relationship between mathematics and philosophy, demonstrating how abstract ideas can lead to concrete advancements in understanding the universe. They also illustrate the tension between perception and reality, as our senses may tell us one thing about motion and distance, while logical reasoning may lead us to different conclusions. This intricate dance between intuition and rigorous thought continues to inspire both philosophers and scientists as they seek the simulation hypothesis, a captivating idea gaining traction in philosophical and scientific circles, suggests that our reality might actually be a sophisticated simulation, possibly created by a more advanced civilization. This concept has roots in early philosophical thought, but it gained significant attention through the work of people like Nick Bostrom, a philosopher at Oxford University, who proposed that if technological progress continues, future civilizations could run many simulations of their ancestors, making it highly probable that we are living in one of those simulations. The idea raises fascinating questions about the nature of existence, as it challenges our understanding of reality itself, prompting debates about consciousness, free will, and what it means to be human. Many notable figures have weighed in on the topic, including tech moguls like Elon Musk, who famously stated that the odds are that we are living in a simulation. Given the rapid advancement of technology and virtual reality, this thought experiment leads us to consider how indistinguishable simulations could become from what we perceive as real life, making the lines between simulated and genuine experiences increasingly blurred. Some scientists explore this hypothesis through the lens of quantum mechanics, where the behavior of particles at a subatomic level appears to defy classical logic, suggesting that our understanding of reality might be more complex than we realize. Moreover, the simulation hypothesis invites discussions about the ethical implications of creating sentient beings within simulations, as well as the responsibilities of those who might create such virtual worlds. Philosophers and ethicists ponder whether the entities inside a simulation would possess rights or consciousness, and whether their experiences would hold value. This leads to intriguing scenarios where, if we were to discover that we are indeed living in a simulation, it could challenge our beliefs about morality, purpose, and existence as we know it. In popular culture, the simulation hypothesis has found its way into films and literature, with The Matrix standing out as a prime example of how captivating this concept can be. The film explores themes of reality, illusion, and control, resonating with audiences and fueling further interest in the philosophical inquiries surrounding our understanding of existence. It raises questions about the nature of choice, and whether we are merely players in a grand design, or if we can truly influence our own destinies. As technological advancements continue, discussions about virtual realities and artificial intelligence deepen, making the simulation hypothesis increasingly relevant. Virtual reality experiences are becoming more immersive, blurring the lines between what is real and what is simulated, prompting us to question the fabric. The omnivore's dilemma, a term popularized by Michael Pollan in his book of the same name, explores the complex choices that modern eaters face when deciding what to eat, and it dives deep into the implications of those choices. At its core, the dilemma arises from the fact that humans can eat a wide variety of foods, unlike many animals that have a more limited diet. This flexibility, while advantageous, leads to confusion about what is healthy sustainable, and ethical. With so many options available, consumers often find themselves overwhelmed, unsure of which foods are best for their health, the environment, and animal welfare. Holland identifies three main food chains in the modern world: the industrial, the organic, and the foraged. The industrial food chain is characterized by mass production, heavy use of chemicals, and a focus on efficiency, often prioritizing profit over nutritional value. The organic food chain, while generally perceived as healthier and more sustainable, is not without its own challenges and issues, such as the potential for organic products to be marketed in misleading ways. Finally, the foraged food chain represents the traditional practices of gathering food from nature, emphasizing local, seasonal ingredients that often come with a deep connection to the land and a stronger understanding of food systems. One fascinating aspect of the omnivore's dilemma is how our food choices can reflect our values and priorities. For instance, someone who values sustainability may choose to buy local produce, while another person might prioritize convenience and opt for pre-packaged meals. This illustrates the broader social and cultural implications of our eating habits, revealing how they can shape not just individual health, but also community well-being and environmental health. Moreover, Pollen encourages readers to reconnect with the sources of their food, emphasizing the importance of understanding where our meals come from and how they are produced. By doing so, consumers can make more informed choices that align with their personal ethics and health goals. He highlights the significance of the farm-to-table movement, which advocates for transparency in food sourcing and encourages consumers to support local farmers and sustainable practices. The book also delves into the role of government policies and agricultural practices that have shaped the food landscape. For example, the heavy subsidies for corn and soy in the United States have led to the overproduction of processed foods, which are often far removed from whole, nutritious ingredients. This reliance on a small number of crops can have serious implications for biodiversity and food security, making it crucial. The tragedy of the commons is a concept that highlights a significant issue in resource management, which arises when individuals, acting independently according to their self-interest, ultimately deplete or spoil shared resources, leading to a situation where everyone suffers. This idea was popularized by the economist Garrett Hardin in a 1968 essay, where he illustrated this principle using the example of a common pasture shared by multiple herders. Each herder, seeking to maximize their own benefit, might add more livestock to the pasture, but as the number of animals increases, the grass becomes overgrazed, and eventually the pasture can no longer support any livestock. This results in a loss for everyone as the resource becomes unusable. The tragedy of the commons isn't just about pastures, though. It can be seen in various contexts, such as overfishing in the oceans, deforestation of shared forests, and even the pollution of air and water resources. It's a classic example of a dilemma in which individual interests clash with the collective good, raising important questions about sustainability and communal responsibility. In many cases, people might not realize that their actions, while seemingly harmless on an individual level, can lead to disastrous consequences for the community as a whole. This dilemma has sparked numerous discussions about how to manage common resources effectively, leading to the exploration of solutions like regulation, privatization, or community management systems. Some scholars argue that local communities can self-organize and create rules to manage common resources sustainably, drawing on centuries of traditional practices. Others believe that government intervention is necessary to prevent overuse and to protect these shared resources. Furthermore, the rise of technology and globalization has added another layer of complexity to the tragedy of the commons, as it allows for greater exploitation of resources, often without regard for the long-term consequences. For example, the internet has become a common space where digital resources are shared, yet issues like data privacy, information overload, and digital pollution illustrate how even virtual commons can fall victim to overuse and neglect. In many ways, the tragedy of the commons serves as a cautionary tale, reminding society of the importance of collective action and responsible stewardship of shared resources. It challenges us to think about how we can balance individual desires with the needs of the community, ensuring that we do not sacrifice the well-being of future generations for short-term gains. As we face pressing global challenges such as climate change and resource scarcity, understanding the implications, the ethics of artificial intelligence is a fascinating and complex topic that has gained significant attention in recent years, as AI technology becomes more integrated into our daily lives. At its core, the ethics of AI involves understanding how these intelligent systems can be designed and used in ways that align with moral values and social norms. One major concern is the potential for bias in AI algorithms. These algorithms learn from data, and if the data contains biases, the AI can inadvertently perpetuate these biases in its decisions. For instance, in hiring practices, if an algorithm is trained on historical data that reflects discrimination against certain groups, it may continue to favor candidates from non-discriminated groups, leading to unfair outcomes. Another ethical consideration is the transparency of AI systems. As these technologies become more complex, it can be challenging for users to understand how decisions are made. This lack of transparency raises questions about accountability, especially when AI systems are involved in critical areas like healthcare or criminal justice. If an AI system wrongly diagnoses a patient or wrongly accuses someone of a crime, determining who is responsible can be difficult. Moreover, the issue of privacy is also significant in the AI ethics conversation. Many AI applications rely on vast amounts of personal data to function effectively, which poses risks to individuals' privacy. For instance, facial recognition technology can identify individuals in public spaces, raising concerns about surveillance and the potential for misuse. Additionally, there is the question of the impact of AI on employment. As AI systems become more capable, there is a fear that many jobs may be replaced by machines, leading to economic displacement for workers. This raises ethical questions about how society should respond, whether through retraining programs, universal basic income, or other means. Another interesting aspect is the concept of autonomous systems. Particularly in the context of self-driving cars, these vehicles must make split-second decisions in potentially dangerous situations, and the ethical implications of these decisions are profound. For example, if a self-driving car must choose between swerving to avoid a pedestrian, potentially harming its passengers, or staying on course, causing harm to the pedestrian, how should it decide? This dilemma brings forth the need for ethical guidelines that can inform the programming of such systems. Furthermore, there are the implications of AI in warfare. The development of autonomous weapons raises ethical concerns about the potential for machines to make life and death decisions without human oversight. The idea of machines engaging in combat without human intervention prompts debates about morality, accountability, and the value of human life. Lastly, the is-ought problem, which is sometimes referred to as Hume's law, originates from the philosophical ideas of David Hume, an 18th-century Scottish philosopher. This intriguing concept addresses the challenge of deriving ethical statements about what ought to be done from purely descriptive statements about what is. In simpler terms, it suggests that just because something is a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that it should be that way. For instance, if we observe that a society practices a particular custom, the is-ought problem prompts us to question whether that custom is morally justified or if it should be changed. This distinction between descriptive statements, which tell us how things are, and normative statements, which tell us how things should be, is crucial in ethics and moral philosophy. Hume emphasized that many people assume a direct link between these two types of statements, but he argued that this assumption is flawed. He believed that moral conclusions require additional premises or values that cannot be derived solely from empirical observation. The implications of the is-ought problem are vast, especially in moral reasoning and ethical debates. For example, in discussions about environmental ethics, one might argue that because the planet is currently facing severe issues, we ought to take action to protect it. However, the is-ought problem urges us to consider what specific values or principles lead us to that conclusion. Are we motivated by a sense of responsibility, the desire for sustainability, or perhaps a belief in the intrinsic value of nature? Moreover, the is-ought problem has sparked significant discussions in the fields of ethics, social science, and political theory. For example, in political discourse, one often encounters the phrase, "This is how society operates, therefore we ought to maintain it." This reasoning can be problematic, as it may overlook the need for critical evaluation of social norms and practices. Just because a society functions in a particular way does not mean that its practices are just or beneficial. Philosophers have also debated how to bridge the gap between is and ought. Some argue for the existence of objective moral truths that can guide our understanding of ethical behavior, while others lean toward relativism, suggesting that moral values are culturally bound and thus subjective. This ongoing dialogue highlights the complexity of human values and the challenges in reaching consensus on ethical matters. In contemporary discussions, the is-ought problem remains relevant, particularly in areas like bioethics, where advancements in technology and science raise new moral dilemmas. For instance, the paradox of choice, a concept popularized by psychologist Barry Schwartz, suggests that having too many options can lead to anxiety, dissatisfaction, and even paralysis when it comes to making decisions. In a world where choices abound, from what to eat for breakfast to which television series to binge watch, it seems like an abundance of options should lead to greater happiness, right? However, the opposite can often be true. When faced with numerous possibilities, people may feel overwhelmed, unsure of what to select, and worry that they might make the wrong choice. This is partly due to the fear of missing out, or FOMO, which can plague individuals as they contemplate the benefits of alternatives they did not choose. Interestingly, research has shown that while having some choice is essential for autonomy and satisfaction, there is a point at which more options lead to less happiness. For example, in a study involving jam samples, participants who were offered 24 varieties were less likely to make a purchase than those offered just 6. This suggests that simplifying choices can lead to increased satisfaction, as it allows individuals to focus on what truly matters to them, rather than getting lost in the overwhelming range of options. In today's digital age, where everything from shopping to dating is a click away, the paradox of choice is more relevant than ever. As people grapple with the endless streams of possibilities presented to them, this phenomenon is not just limited to consumer behavior, it also extends to life decisions like career paths, relationships, and even lifestyle choices. The pressure to make the perfect choice can lead to decision fatigue, where individuals become so exhausted by the process of choosing that they struggle to make even simple decisions. To combat the paradox of choice, experts suggest strategies such as limiting options, prioritizing personal values, and embracing the idea of good enough instead of perfection. By doing so, individuals can alleviate some of the stress associated with decision-making and ultimately find greater satisfaction in their choices. In essence, while choice is a fundamental aspect of our lives, recognizing the limitations of choice and understanding how to navigate it can lead to a more fulfilling and less stressful existence. The bystander effect is a fascinating psychological phenomenon that explains how individuals are less likely to offer help to a victim when other people are present. This intriguing behavior was notably highlighted after the tragic murder of Kitty Genovese in 1964, where numerous witnesses failed to intervene or call for help. Despite her cries for assistance, researchers, including social psychologists, have studied this effect extensively, revealing that the presence of others can create a diffusion of responsibility, meaning that individuals feel less personally accountable for taking action when they believe someone else will step in. This phenomenon is often illustrated through various experiments, such as the famous smoke-filled room study, where students were less likely to report smoke when they were in a group compared to when they were alone. Interestingly, the bystander effect can be influenced by several factors, including the perceived danger of the situation, the relationship between the bystander and the victim, as well as the number of bystanders present. For instance, if a bystander believes that the situation is not serious, or if they think that someone else will take charge, they are less likely to intervene. On the other hand, if the bystander is familiar with the victim, or if the situation appears to be more serious, they are often more inclined to help. This complex interplay of social dynamics and individual psychology illustrates how our behavior can be shaped by the presence of others, often leading to inaction in critical moments. Moreover, the bystander effect has important implications for emergency response training and public awareness campaigns. By understanding this phenomenon, organizations can create strategies to encourage individuals to take action, even in the presence of others. For example, training programs often emphasize the importance of identifying a specific person to help, rather than feeling overwhelmed by the crowd. Active bystander interventions, such as those promoted on college campuses, aim to empower individuals to step in and assist when they witness potentially harmful situations. This effect is not just limited to emergencies. It can also be observed in everyday scenarios, such as when someone drops their belongings in a busy area and people pass by without offering assistance. The social context plays a significant role in determining whether individuals will act or remain passive, and understanding this can help us foster a more supportive community. Through educational initiatives, people can learn to recognize the signs of the bystander effect and become more proactive in offering help, which can ultimately lead to positive changes in social behavior. Additionally, the bystander effect has been examined. The ethics of torture is a deeply complex topic that stirs intense debate among philosophers, ethicists, and human rights advocates. At its core, the discussion revolves around the fundamental question of whether inflicting pain, suffering, or humiliation on an individual, regardless of the circumstances, can ever be justified. Advocates against torture argue that it violates basic human rights, undermines the rule of law, and erodes the moral fabric of society. They point to international treaties, like the United Nations Convention Against Torture, which explicitly prohibits torture in all forms, emphasizing that no exceptional circumstances, whether in war or public emergency, can justify such acts. On the other hand, some argue from a utilitarian perspective, suggesting that if torture could save lives by extracting crucial information, it might be considered morally permissible in certain extreme situations. This raises difficult questions about the reliability of information obtained under duress, as studies and historical examples have shown that coerced confessions or information can often be false, leading to misguided actions and further harm. Moreover, the ethics of torture also delve into the psychological impact on both the victim and the perpetrator. Victims of torture can suffer long-lasting trauma, while those who carry out such acts may experience moral injury, guilt, or psychological distress, creating a cycle of violence that affects society as a whole. The debate is further complicated by the social and political context in which torture may occur, as governments and institutions sometimes rationalize its use for national security, often leading to a slippery slope where the definition of torture can become blurred. Ethical frameworks, such as deontology, argue that certain actions, including torture, are intrinsically wrong, regardless of the consequences, while consequentialist views may focus on the outcomes of actions, weighing the potential benefits against the harms. In contemporary discussions, the ethics of torture also intersect with issues of accountability, transparency, and the role of institutions. Many advocates call for stronger oversight and legal protections to prevent the use of torture, emphasizing that a commitment to human rights must be upheld even in the face of threats. The complexities of this issue continue to challenge lawmakers, military personnel, and society at large, as they grapple with the moral implications of torture and its long-term effects on justice, ethics, and humanity. The moral status of animals is a fascinating and complex topic that raises many questions about our ethical responsibilities towards non-human beings. For centuries, philosophers, scientists, and animal rights activists have debated whether animals possess moral rights, and if so, what those rights entail. Some argue that because animals can experience pain, pleasure, and a range of emotions, they should be accorded moral consideration, similar to humans. This perspective often leads to discussions about animal welfare, where advocates argue for better treatment of animals in various industries, such as agriculture, entertainment, and research. Others, however, challenge the idea that animals should have the same moral standing as humans, often citing differences in cognitive abilities, self-awareness, and social structures. The concept of sentience is central to the discussion of the moral status of animals. Sentience refers to the capacity to have feelings and experiences, particularly the ability to feel pain and pleasure. Many scientists agree that a wide range of animals, from mammals to birds, and even some invertebrates, exhibit signs of sentience. This recognition has prompted calls for changes in legislation to protect animals from suffering, as well as movements to promote more humane practices in industries that involve animals. For example, the rise of veganism and vegetarianism can be seen as a response to concerns about the ethical treatment of animals in food production, where factory farming practices are often criticized for their cruelty. Another important aspect of this discussion is the concept of speciesism, which is the idea that humans place greater value on their own species over others, often leading to the justification of harming animals for human benefit. Critics argue that speciesism is akin to other forms of discrimination, such as racism or sexism, suggesting that it is morally wrong to prioritize human interests over the well-being of animals, simply because they belong to different species. This view encourages people to rethink their relationships with animals, considering them not merely as resources for human use, but as beings with their own intrinsic value. Furthermore, cultural and societal factors play a significant role in shaping our views on the moral status of animals. Different cultures have varying beliefs about the importance of animals, with some societies venerating certain species, while others may view them primarily as commodities. This cultural lens can influence everything from dietary choices to conservation efforts, as well as the legal protections afforded to animals. For instance, in some countries, specific animals are protected by law due to their ecological importance or cultural significance, while in others there may be little to no legal recourse. The uncanny valley is a fascinating concept that delves into the relationship between humans and robots, or more broadly, human-like figures. It was first introduced by the Japanese roboticist Masahiro Mori in the 1970s. And it describes a peculiar phenomenon where humanoid objects, such as robots or animated characters, evoke feelings of unease or discomfort when they appear almost, but not quite, human. This unsettling effect occurs as these entities become more lifelike, yet still retain some distinct, robotic features, triggering a sense of revulsion in observers. The term valley refers to the graphical representation of this relationship, where people's emotional responses to robots dip sharply as the robots begin to resemble humans, but fall short of achieving perfect likeness. Research has shown that this effect can be influenced by various factors, including the degree of realism, the context in which the humanoid is presented, and individual differences among observers. For instance, a well-designed robot that closely mimics human appearance and behavior may generate feelings of comfort and acceptance, while a robot that strays too close to human likeness without fully convincing the observer can lead to feelings of eeriness or discomfort. This phenomenon is not just limited to robots, but can also apply to animated characters in movies or video games, where certain characters may provoke similar reactions from audiences. The uncanny valley concept has significant implications for various fields, including robotics, animation, and even virtual reality. Designers and creators must carefully consider how their humanoid designs are perceived by the audience, as straddling the line between human-like and distinctly artificial can result in unintended negative reactions. For example, in the world of video games, developers aim to create characters that players can connect with emotionally, but if a character looks too realistic yet lacks genuine emotion, it can lead to a sense of disconnection, making the gaming experience less enjoyable. Moreover, the uncanny valley raises intriguing questions about what it means to be human and how we relate to beings that mimic our appearance and behavior. As technology continues to advance and robots become more integrated into our daily lives, understanding these emotional responses will be crucial. Some researchers suggest that as our familiarity with robots increases, the uncanny valley may gradually diminish, leading to greater acceptance of humanoid machines. However, this is still a topic of ongoing debate within the scientific community. In popular culture, the uncanny valley has been explored in various ways, from films like Ex Machina, the Fermi paradox, which poses a fascinating question about the apparent contradiction between the high probability of extraterrestrial life and the lack of evidence for or contact with such civilizations, invites us to explore the vastness of the universe and our place within it. Named after physicist Enrico Fermi, who famously asked, "Where is everybody?" during a discussion about the possibilities of life beyond Earth. The paradox highlights a significant gap between the vast number of stars in the galaxy, many of which have planets within the habitable zone, and the absence of any clear signs of intelligent life. One explanation for this paradox is the concept of the Great Filter, suggesting that there is a stage in the evolution of life that is extremely unlikely for most civilizations to surpass. This filter could lie in the past, such as the emergence of life itself, or it could be in our future, implying that advanced civilizations tend to self-destruct or face existential threats before they can colonize the galaxy. Another theory proposes that intelligent civilizations may be rare due to specific conditions required for life to evolve. Or perhaps advanced societies do exist, but they are intentionally avoiding contact with us, leading to speculation about a cosmic zoo where we are observed but not interacted with. Additionally, some scientists suggest that the universe is so vast that the distances between civilizations are prohibitive, making communication and travel incredibly difficult, if not impossible. It's also possible that our methods of searching for extraterrestrial life are limited, as we primarily look for radio signals or other technological markers, while more advanced civilizations might use entirely different forms of communication. The idea of time also plays a role, as the universe is around 13.8 billion years old, and civilizations may arise and fall within a relatively short span, meaning that we might be alone in the present moment, or that we simply missed them. The Fermi paradox encourages ongoing discussions and research in astrobiology, astronomy, and philosophy as scientists continue to search for exoplanets, study extremophiles on Earth, and explore the potential for life in extreme environments such as the subsurface oceans of moons like Europa and Enceladus. As we advance in our technology and understanding of the universe, the question remains, are we truly alone, or are we just not looking in the right way?